Mr. Pomeroy, rebuttal.
Yes, Your Honor, we're just putting up one exhibit, and I'll be ready.
Thank you.
You plugged in? Make it full screen. That works. That works. Thank you. So this is Matthew Restelli. It's pretty obvious what he's doing in this photo. It's a wedding photo. This was Matthew at one of his best times in his life. Matthew was a husband, father to 3 children, son to Diane. Unfortunately, in this trial, you also saw Matthew at his worst. But what Matthew was at his worst is what earned him the nickname Olaf. The talkative, friendly, yet obnoxious snowman from a Disney movie. No one feared Matthew, not really. They made fun of him. They didn't fear him enough to be that worried when he was coming up. None of the family who wasn't in the home and part of the conspiracy thought to call the police. No one checked up on him after he got there for a long time. So why is it that Matthew Restelli ended up dead? Reasonable doubt is the standard you have to apply to answer that question. Think about reasonable doubt, not imaginary doubt. You can't just say a whole bunch of stuff and distract from the evidence. You have to base it in the evidence. If you have doubt, it must be grounded in that evidence. But when you look at that evidence, you don't see reasonable doubt here. There's a lot talked about the plan. See, never said it was a long-term plan. There was a lot of stuff that built up to that pivotal moment when there was a plan. There was a lot of bad blood, so to speak, that built up until Kevin was willing to shoot Matthew. A lot of bad blood that built up, things that happened until Tracey had had enough of that annoyance she called her son-in-law. It was called the messy plan. Quite frankly, looked pretty good. Utah, shoot, intruder. He had a knife. No one was home. Problem was the neighbor who called 911 too soon. Everything went haywire after that, and the plan fell apart. Not for that, we might not be sitting here today. So when we call it a messy plan, it doesn't mean it wasn't a plan. When we call it a failed plan, in the cover-up sense, it doesn't mean it wasn't a plan. And it doesn't even mean that we're saying that the entire family knew about this plan. That's not at all what we've said in this case. What we've said is that everything that got shared in the family was shared among the entire family, and that Tracey knows what to say to get the reaction she wants from her children. And that's what happened here. Without Tracey, this doesn't happen. Without Tracey, Kate didn't lure Matt to Utah. Without Tracey, Kevin did not lie in wait. Without Tracey, Tim would have been there to keep the peace. Without Tracey, Rory and Jake would have been home. Without Tracey, there would have been no gun. Without Tracey, there would have been no knife. Without Tracey, Matthew Restelli is alive. And to acknowledge this does not minimize Kevin or Kate's involvement in any way. You know, you want to talk about The cocaine, fine, we can talk about the cocaine. Isn't it a reasonable inference that Kevin did cocaine so he had the nerves to do what his mother asked him? There's a jury instruction that hasn't been looked at too much. Instruction 24. There has been evidence to suggest that persons other than the defendant may have been involved in the crime for which the defendant is on trial. Your duty in this case is to decide only whether the prosecution has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the guilt of the defendant who is on trial. Kate pled guilty. Kevin was convicted. Your only duty to ask Tracey was tied to this murder. And Tracey was tied to this murder. The plan went to hell. The plan didn't work. And Kevin was mad at her. Exhibit 131. Please tell Kevin that if he is mad at me and doesn't want to talk to me, he doesn't have to. I'm mad at me too. The defense said this is a case about a man who came to be with his family. There's truth in that. This case is also about control. Tracey's control over her daughter, Kate. Tracey's control over her son, Kevin. And Tracey's control over her entire family. And ultimately, her control over whether Matthew Restelli lived or died. The evidence in this case shows how she used that control. The law in this case tells you what that means. And your verdict should reflect both. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pomeroy.